Greetings on and all, Lembit Öpik here on a special live broadcast. If you're watching this live, Nigel Farage has won the Clacton-on-Sea by-election. I feel motivated to talk to you about it because the mainstream media is already trying to play down the victory. Absolute classic. If Count Binface had won, he would have, of course, been the centre stage. Everyone would have been going on about it. But no, because Nigel Farage did win, as predicted, I would say, the mainstream don't really want to talk about it. It doesn't really suit their needs. Indeed, the BBC has fallen over itself to say muted response as Nigel Farage declared the winner there. Farage, who secured far more votes than last time. So they've had to put something up there, but very little. Farage's vote's gone up by about 1,000 votes, but on a smaller turnout. So he has indeed increased the number of votes he's got. We'll look at the numbers in a minute. But the classic story here is media bias. Now, it's not presented as media bias. It's presented as, well, Nigel Farage was always expected to win. Nothing to see here. Let's talk about other things. Indeed, at point of broadcast, they're mainly talking about the wildfires. But they might be actually wanting to talk about who's starting those fires. But whether or not it's arson, what they're trying to do is torch the news that Farage has won. They're trying to do just about anything to justify not covering Nigel Farage's victory as the top story, or at least the one that deserves much more attention. Why is this? Well, it's because Nigel Farage is a genuine threat to the establishment. Farage himself claims that there's evidence that Conservatives, Labour and Liberal Democrats were all canvassing for Binface, the self-styled humorist, who, of course, isn't all that radical. He works for the BBC, and he's been writing satirical items for things like Have I Got News for You, as I understand. So underneath the bin, there's a very recognised face at the BBC. Perhaps that's one reason it's a muted response, according to the BBC. Let's just have a look at that again. This headline is generated by the BBC itself, muted response, as if the BBC has no say whatever in terms of what they're broadcasting. It's frankly pathetic. I would say, whether you're not a Nigel Farage supporter, it's worthy of deep analysis. What happened there? Was Farage right to stand? Why did he do so well with over 60% of the vote? But no, it's a muted response. That's what we get instead. Let's actually look at the figures. The figures are quite interesting here. There you are. Reform UK, Nigel Farage, 22,239 votes. Count Binface party, Count Binface, 9,500, which is a pretty good result, actually, for Binface. But then he had Tory, Labour and Lib Dems all wanting him to win. Interestingly, he claims Lawrence Fox there, the self-styled independent, really. He got 347, but no one else really is in the frame there. Add the votes of Reform and Binface together, and you're getting around 90% plus of the total vote. So the big victory there for Nigel Farage, a good result for him, vindicates him to an extent because he can now legitimately say he's got the mandate from the people despite all the accusations being made against him. I've got 3 points to leave you with in this short broadcast. First of all, Nigel Farage is going back to a parliament, the building behind me there, where he's going to carry on experiencing scrutiny about his financial dealings and so forth. That's not over yet. All they did was suspend the inquiry until the by-election was over. So that's going to continue dragging on. And if he's found innocent, then he's vindicated. If he isn't, then they might suspend him. And if they suspend him for more than 10 days, then we could have another by-election. We could have a rerun of this particular campaign. Second observation, the mainstream parties have a problem. If there is another by-election, which doubtless would be organised by petitioners operating on behalf of the mainstream parties, then they have to stand. And it's quite likely that in that situation, Nigel Farage gets the by-election he was hoping for this time. In other words, one where the establishment parties actually stand not behind a pretend candidate like Binface, but with rosettes of their own, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem. What happens then? What happens if Reform wins again, if Nigel Farage wins again. This could be another interesting chapter in British politics, because many people have been saying that Reform has peaked, and indeed Labour has improved. They couldn't have done much worse, having replaced the idiot Keir Starmer, a person I regard as totally inappropriate to be Prime Minister, with a much more competent leader, namely Andy Burnham. So I would expect them to go up. But if Farage wins, that could give another boost to Reform UK in a second by-election. And the third one is this: the people who are gunning for Farage, the people who just want to see Farage come down. Why? Well, it's because Farage presents a real threat to the establishment. Nigel Farage is a man who, well, to be honest with you, has far more charisma than just about anyone else in politics. The reality here is that we're dealing with a man who knows how to wow an audience. And Farage is perfectly entitled to feel pretty good today, because whether or not you agree, and I had doubts about this by-election gambit, whether or not you agree with it, he's pulled it off. He's won. And as a result, the gunning will continue, but there's also a threat to his well-being. One of his good friends, a good friend of mine, a Reform UK ally, Anne Widdecombe, was murdered in her own home in very suspicious circumstances, which I believe to be terrorism, despite the botched claims for and against that the police have made. It's quite obvious to me it was politically motivated. So he actually has a huge security issue. It's almost like the establishment really can't bear to have a new kid on the block, a new voice, somebody who can shake the tree and change things. Farage isn't perfect, he's never pretended to be, but he does seem to be different. And that's the thing that's most interesting here. What happens next? Well, I would say that Nigel now has to wait and see what happens with this inquiry. Interestingly enough, of course, if they vindicate him, perhaps there was no need for the by-election in the first place. If they find him guilty of something, he's not necessarily guilty of breaking the law, but just parliamentary rules, then we have a whole further chapter in this palaver, potentially even in Clacton-on-Sea. So they're going to try and keep Nigel Farage bottled up in his constituency, which leads to the big question: how do you feel about this? Do you think that Nigel Farage is justified in getting all this attention, or do you think the Conservatives have had their nose in the trough for so many years, as has Labour? Angela Rayner, just look at her claim for things that she's been given. I was on a television programme with her once. She went mental when I highlighted the fact that she got close and so forth. And of course, the presenters took her side. Look at the amount of money made by people who are sympathetic to the Conservatives during the COVID scamdemic, as I would call it. So they're happy enough to be on the right side of the profits when it suits them, but they just go for Farage all the time. No one in politics is perfect. What I don't like is hypocrisy. And that's what I tend to see all the time. So my view is that Nigel Farage is now going to be very quickly forgotten in terms of the by-election. They don't like the fact, mainstream doesn't like the fact he got 62% plus of the poll, and they'll find other ways to harass him. A few comments coming in here. Yeah, hello Ricky, good to see from you. Binface, if he had won, oh boy, exactly. And I bet I could have done better than Binface. Well, I'm not sure, Ricky. I think you probably couldn't, because you wouldn't have had the establishment parties behind you. But it's true. Ricky Sickles makes a very good point. If Binface had won, this would be headline news all over the world. And it would have been used as a hammer blow against Reform UK. But he didn't win. Let's remember, Count Binface didn't win. The person who won this election was indeed the person who's likely to win it, and that is Nigel Farage. What happens next? Well, let's just see. But I don't think Nigel's out of the woods yet for the reasons that I said. I welcome your thoughts, of course, and I'll be talking about this a lot on X today, if you're watching this live. I'll leave you with one final prediction. Reform has established itself as a party in the country, whether people like it or not, and I think that they will now begin to be judged on their performance at local government. I bet some of the people at local government level in Reform, many of them in fact, they're really trying hard to do better than what's gone before. And I think that's what the establishment hates. It's just possible that we actually are seeing an opportunity to sweep the old guard under the carpet. And the more they bleat, moan, and support people like Binface, the less credible they look. I've known Nigel Farage for 1.5 decades, and whatever you think about him, I believe he is one of the most influential politicians of his generation, and he might just pull off being Prime Minister yet. Please do like and subscribe to @Unprecedented TV. Tell your friends as well. And give UK Live a look in as well. I'm often there. Mike Graham and his team and Pooch are doing a great job. What we're doing is what the establishment media can't stand. Telling it to you as we see it, without the shackle of a cosy collusion with the old guard. There are some good politicians in the old parties, but the parties themselves are out of date. See you soon.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages.